So today's guest is Troy Erickson. If you don't know who Troy is the owner of copywriting.org, emaildeliverability.com, emaillistmanagement.com. His company is called Email Paramedic, which is kind of like providing solutions to all of those things out there, which is actually the leading email management agency that have generated over $50 million for their clients since 2019 by improving the email copy, their deliverability, and how to reach to their customers as well more effectively.
If you make a mistake, nobody's going to kill you. It's okay. It's all good. That's how you learn. I've made plenty of mistakes in my lifetime, but a lot of people just freeze or they don't even start. And maybe the reason they don't experiment is because they're afraid to make a mistake.
He worked with some of the top entrepreneurs in our industry, with guys like Traffic and Funnels, sales mentor Rich Sheffran, and Perry Belcher, and also Jason Capital, Alex Catani, Sam Owens, David Melzer, and so many more amazing people out there as well. He also been nominated as top 20 copywriters in the world, which is amazing. We're going to talk about copywriting, we're going to talk about emails, and so many things as well. So please welcome Troy Erickson. Hey, Troy.
Hey, what's up, RJ? Thanks for the awesome intro. I appreciate it.
Truly appreciate it, man. I want to know like a little bit of your backstory out there, like how the journey started for you out there and where you are at the moment.
Yeah, so in 2019, I was actually in college, which wasn't that long ago, crazy enough. And I just wanted to be a professional baseball player. That's all I ever wanted. And it was at that point where things weren't looking great for me because like in high school, I had an extensive surgery on my elbow and I was having some mental complications from that surgery that were in college. It was affecting my performance. I was a pitcher and I couldn't throw accurately anymore. I had this thing called the yips where it's, if you've ever seen a baseball player who can't make an easy throw or a golfer who can't make an easy putt, and it's just like hard to explain to other people why you can't perform. But as a senior in college, I got cut from my college baseball team. So I was supposed to be like a team leader and I got cut and basically lost my job to freshmen. And at that point, I was like, okay, I feel like my identity's gone. I feel like I could just crumple up my identity and throw it in the trash. But fortunately for me, in the 2 weeks, I literally stayed inside for 2 weeks because I was embarrassed to even go to class. But in that time, I'd recently discovered internet marketing, Facebook ads, and I kind of flipped things on eBay. So I spent those 2 weeks just sitting inside and like going harder and harder at that. And I came across, around that time, a guy named Greg, who was my very first client. I found him on Upwork after I took my first course, ran Facebook ads for him for a while. And then to help me not get a real job after college, which was really just all I wanted all along, he started this little agency and we did some Facebook ad and funnel work for clients. And one day, one of my clients was like, hey, we have to fire you. And I was like, why? And they were like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, yeah, you're done. And I was like, no. Tell me what's going on here, because I'm looking at the cost per lead in Facebook and nothing has changed because you just told me to get you leads. And they were like, all right, fine. So we're getting the leads, but all our emails are going to spam and we don't know how to solve it. So I said, okay, well, you don't have to pay me. Just let me go in and take my little bit of email experience from other clients and try to fix this problem for you. And if I can fix it for you, we'll go back to what we were doing. And they were like, all right, that's fine, I guess. And so I hopped in and they were going to spam. They were only sending probably one email a week. And it was really bad. It was like very boring, very transactional. So fix those three things for them just by doing a lot of research online, by paying people for help, joining some courses. And in the course of that summer, they went from 13K a month in email revenue to 54K a month.
Wow.
So it was basically, or 52, can't remember. It was basically like a 4X. So that's kind of how I got into email. And I realized like, this seems like a bluer ocean than Facebook ads. So then I just made the switch and never looked back and, generated over $100 million now for our clients, just running email lists. And that's all I've ever done since roughly 4 years ago.
Awesome. That's amazing. Absolutely. So like when we talk about, email and email marketing or so, I think a lot of people out there make it kind of like underrated. They always talk about like, hey, it's just writing emails, that's it. So like for you, like how you were able to kind of like package it, I would say, or like how you're able to position it in a way where the clientele or the clients were started to realize like, hey, it's not just email, it's not just putting random words and like just sending it, it's just more than it. So like how you came up with that stuff?
Yeah, so the whole premise, and I was in the copy accelerator circle, and they had a big impact on me, Stephen Georgi and Justin Goff.
Yeah.
But the inherently thing that's inherently wrong with the copyright industry, especially when it comes to email, is like if I just give you the email copy, RJ, and you don't understand how to take that email and set it up inside your ESP where it's actually going to land in somebody's primary inbox as opposed to promotions or spam, anybody can write copy, right? Like some people are really good,
Exactly.
some people are okay, some people are bad. But if you find a talented copywriter and they all of a sudden you don't like working with them for any reason, you can just cut them if you're a business owner. And there's so many more out there. But if you find somebody who's good at copy, they understand your ESP and they can set up emails and they'll do it for you. They'll save time and they understand deliverability, so they can get you way higher open rates and make you more money. Why would you not choose that person? So that's kind of the
Absolutely.
whole problem that we're solving with email list management. I have a whole movement now and I have a certification program, and we're building an army of list managers.
Amazing. So like you were able to figure out like what is the additional service like we can add up so that even the retention of the client goes high as well, and the value on your end also goes high as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also just figuring out like what the problem is. So it's like I didn't
Yeah.
just think like, what can I tack on to make it more valuable? It's also like, what problems are people actually experiencing with this? And it's like, well, usually copywriters just turn in their copy in a Google Doc and then that's that. And it's a big problem for business owners, especially deliverability, because like hardly any of them understand deliverability.
Exactly. Yeah. So like when we talk about, the common the problems definitely with emails are like landing in promotion or spam, you know. So like what are your top 3 tips which you give to anybody out there who like using emails out there, but they're kind of like fed up or frustrated, being like, hey, it's not coming up on, on the inbox, in the primary inbox. So like what are the 3 tips you want to give to those people out there?
Yeah, so the first thing is finding out where you're at right now, because a lot of people don't even know. That's like the main thing they ask us. There's very few people who are aware that they're having a problem if they're like
Yeah.
super advanced than they are. But the first thing is like if you just open a Gmail account, like a new one that you haven't used before, and then you just get on your own email list or send test emails to yourself, then you can see where you're landing, because that
Exactly.
account has no influence based on your previous opening history when you get your own emails. So you just go and you make the account, send some emails, see where they land. And that's how you know where you are. Next thing you want to do is you want to open the email, and in the top right corner, there's these 3 dots. And if you click those dots, it'll say show original. And if you click that, this box will pop up and you'll be able to see like, am I passing DKIM, SPF, and DMARC? And if you're not passing those things, then that makes your job a lot harder to avoid spam or to avoid the promotions tab. So you always want to check that, just make sure you're passing those things. And then there's a lot of people too, they have a lot of email knowledge and they're like, I'm passing all 3 of them, but why am I still having problems?
Yeah.
And at that point, it's about your content, right? So it's like if you have all the things that are technically set up correctly on the back end in your DNS and everything, you still have a content problem. So what you have to do is find the right keyword balance. And that's the thing, after studying the Gmail algorithm for so long, you have to realize that there's certain words that are going to be considered promotional by Gmail, and there's certain words that are not going to be considered promotional. Now, they're not the same for everybody. That's the thing, because based on your domain reputation, right? So like in the past, do you have good open rates? Do you have good click rates? Do very few people mark you as spam, etc.? If all those things are in your favor, then you can get away with a lot more. But if those things aren't in your favor, then it's going to be a lot harder for you. But basically what you have to do is try to figure out what the keywords are for you that are causing problems. And then you can either attempt to remove those words, or you can just write longer emails that don't have promotional keywords in them. So it's like the longer the email and the less promotional keywords you use, the more likely you are to make it. And we have other advanced ways that we charge a lot of money for to fix it for people in a matter of like a couple days permanently. But that's kind of like what I would look out for if I was just hearing about this and I wanted to kind of like see where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing point, especially when most people don't even double check the cause or the issue, like why the problem having, and the next thing is they don't even have an idea about like what could be the problem, and then they're like, screw it, like let's do it that way, and then all of the emails are coming up in promotions. That's definitely interesting. Speaking of that, I know like you're also pretty good in copywriting as well. Right now, AI, is kind of like on the buzz or so, and it's just kind of like at the moment, like if you don't adapt, you're gonna be left behind or so. So like how you kind of like merging AI, and also making sure that not everybody's kind of like the same, like doing everybody kind of like cloning each other out there, but be more, I would say, like just using more creativity, or using the power of AI to blend it into copywriting and also into the email side of it as well. Like how you're planning to do it or how you're doing it at the moment.
Yeah, so for the most part right now, there's two ways that I use AI. So I always have, like, there's certain things I always have open on my second screen over here. And one of them now is ChatGPT. And like, I'll ask it questions all the time because
Hmm.
Google is like a search engine and this is like a
Yeah,
second
direct
brain
answer.
of sorts. So the first thing is like, anytime I'm having any kind of problem related to business that like is a tech issue or something of that nature, I ask it and I can get answers fast. So that's less on the copywriting side. The one that's more on the copywriting side is like research and looking up things that I don't have experience in and learning about them. Because it's like you really, that's the first step, right? Like everybody knows research is the first step in copywriting, but not many people want to do it. But now it's kind of fun because you get to play with this like robot that can give you all the answers you want. You just have to know like how to give it the right prompts and tell it like, hey, like give it like all the information that you can and tell it to process that. Be like, hey, you are a world-class direct response copywriter. And I want you to write an email to a list of women who are 40 years old and having like menopausal problems, and they feel that they like don't have as much self-worth as they used to. And here's this
Yeah.
product and about the, and you know what I mean? It's like, that's a niche that like, I'm a guy, I don't have experience in, but the chat GPT can literally tell me so many different things that I didn't know that might be pain points and it might be helpful. So you can
Hmm.
convince more people to buy a product and help more people. But the only downside, and I heard my COO Dom talking about this today on one of his coaching calls. It's like, as a writer, you just have to be careful that you use it to help you, but you don't use it to replace you, because like as soon as you automate yourself, like, replacing yourself is good in a lot of ways, but if you automate yourself too much, then the growth of your business kind of stops and your personal development kind of stops. So be careful what you automate and when you decide to automate it, because like if you're not at the scale that you want to be at right now and your business isn't in the perfect state that you want it to be in, if you automate something that's not in a perfect state, you didn't solve the problem. So it's just kind of my thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, especially when you talked about is don't getting lazy about like feeling like, hey, I can even like automate myself, and like I can, let the AI do the work for me, and you, sitting on the couch and be like, hey, AI is doing the job for me. Yeah, I mean, like that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of it, I'm since I think it's, as you mentioned, like, you started your journey back in like around 2019, and it's been almost like over 4 years now. And what if you list down like two or three things out there that kind of like catapult your journey, or your speed of income, impact, network, and all of those things out there? What those things could be? What do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say the first thing is experimentation. So the number one thing that holds people back, because like now, like obviously in email paramedic, we run
Yeah.
email lists for clients. We solve deliverability problems. But a lot of people start following me because they heard my story, my journey, et cetera. So now we have a certification program, which is interesting because now I can see both sides of the coin. I can see business owners and what they expect, and then I
Hmm.
can see copywriters and like what's holding them back. So the biggest thing holding them back is just that they don't experiment. So like they will come across a problem, and let's say they're good at writing copy, and then if there's a problem and they haven't experienced it before, they don't try. So they won't sign into an ESP to try to solve an email problem. If there's anything that has the word deliverability on it, it's like they will just kind of shy away and disappear. That's how most copywriters act, right? It's like we're naturally shy people. So if you have that kind of attitude, how are you going to improve? because the biggest thing that's helped me over my journey is literally just like doing things that I'm not asked to do. So, hey, and the story at the beginning is a perfect example because I said, hey, Mr. Client, you have a deliverability problem. That's not my job here, but I'm going to solve it anyway. And then we'll go back to what we were doing. And it turned out to be an entire multi-million-dollar business for me year
Yeah.
after year after year. So if I didn't have that experimental like willingness and confidence, uh, then I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's like that's the number one thing. It's like most people, they just do what they're told, do what they're asked, and they never take a step beyond that. So that is by far the most important thing that you can do. And the second thing is like if you make a mistake, nobody's going to kill you. It's okay. It's all good. That's how you learn. I've made
Part
plenty of
of life.
mistakes in my lifetime, but a lot of people just freeze or they don't even start. Or maybe the reason they don't experiment is because they're afraid to make a mistake.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, especially when you talk about is a lot of people out there, first of all, don't even try. And hence they don't even like upgrade their skill sets about like, hey, I could learn that and add that into my arsenal and be like, hey, I've learned this my way, and then like, hey, let me do it now. Also, you have some of amazing clients that that you helped out in your journey out there, Alex Kitane, Jason Capital, and a lot of other super amazing people out there, Perry Belcher, David Melzer, and all of those. So like, what was the initial point for you to first of all definitely networking with them out there and initially start to work with them out there as well? Like, what was the story behind it?
Sorry, what was the story behind who?
Yeah, so like how were you able to land these like high level clients out there for your service out there? So like how the compounding effect started to happen for you?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so it started at Copy Accelerator, right? So I want to give a shout out to those guys again. But it's really just networking and putting yourself out there. And a lot of people, they don't, that scares people. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I have to leave the house. But even before that, like going inside a Facebook group and just kind of getting known before you leave the house and getting your feet wet, so that when you do go to an event, you'll naturally run into some people who are like, hey, I've seen you on Facebook or
yeah,
wherever.
for sure.
Um, and even like when we hopped on here, you told me that you'd seen my
Yeah,
interview with Alan Soltanich and you'd seen copywriting.org. And I'm like, oh, cool. We kind of know each other already. So a lot of people kind of get mixed up about that. So like if you just make posts on social media talking about what you're doing in your journey, whether or not you're successful yet, if you just talk about what you're doing, other people will be able to relate to you and then you build a relationship with those people. And then as you grow more and more, you just talk about what you're experimenting with, what worked, what didn't. And like that's the kind of content that you should be putting out there because content is just about relating to people. It's not
yeah,
about talking about like how you're the greatest. So you just do that and then you will start networking with people. People talk, it's a compounding effect. Like you said, day one, you're probably not going to get any inbound DMs. You might, but you're probably not. A week
exactly.
down the road, you might get your first one. A month down the road, you might get a couple. But a year from now, you're going to be getting several a week. Or depending on if you're running ads, obviously you'll get more, and then those people tell their friends, and everything speeds up. But ultimately, it just comes down from like being active on the internet, and then like I love live events too because you just meet so many amazing people, and when you meet them in person, they talk about you even more because
Yeah,
they know you at a deeper level. So that's pretty much how you meet all the big people. There's not many big people who like just book a call in your calendar. From time to time, it happens, but it's mostly through who you know.
yeah. So like, do you think it? I think it would be helpful for a lot of people out there, especially who are watching, who might kind of have like sort of like inferiority complex of feeling like, hey, they're on the other level. Like honestly, like for me, like when I started the podcast like almost like 3.5 years ago, I had these thoughts in my mind earlier, but later down the road when I started to like interview these people out there, I started to understand like, hey, on the other side they're also humans, just have to understand different aspects of it. But do you think like a lot of people have this sort of like inferiority complex where they feel like, hey, that person is so huge in the business, I don't think so in any way possible that person could become my client, or I could be even be able to network with them somehow, and they just become their fan and that's it. Do you think about it?
Yeah, that definitely happens, and it's interesting too because like I used to think that way about people, and then it's like weird for me to look at it, but sometimes my
Yeah.
wife or my friends will be like, you're Troy, right? And I'm like, not like I'm just a normal guy. So like if somebody comes up to me and presents like a good offer and is creative in how they reach out, and it seems diligent, hardworking, and they actually show me like what they can do and give me like a little taste, and yeah, I'll respond to that person. It's not a problem. Um, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept. But I'd say most of the time in my certification program, a lot of the students, they're like, should I even bother reaching out to that person? Because somebody else probably filled that job already, or they're probably too
Yeah.
busy to ever read my message. To be honest, like a lot of people will send me a message and me or somebody on the team will see it. It's just like, was the message good and creative enough? And did you like actually show me a sample of what you can do? Because we get a lot of messages and we see almost all of them. It's just that not that many of them are that creative. So you can get in touch with people. It's just if they're not replying, it means your messaging could have been better, not because
Yeah.
you're inferior.
Yeah, amazing. So as you mentioned already, so for people out there who might be thinking like, hey, I want to learn more from Troy. I want to learn the email side of it as well. I want to learn copywriting out there. And I want to see like what Troy is doing so that we can learn from Troy as well. Like, so where people can go and follow and be the part of your world as well.
Yeah, I would say, especially for like the copywriters and email marketers out there, makemoneytypingemails.com.
Yeah, it's not like that.
It summarizes the story and it tells you how you can make money typing emails. So that's probably the simplest place to go.
Awesome. Makes sense. So I will post up the links of Troy in the comment section, also in the show notes down below. So you guys can follow him if you haven't and be the part of his world, follow his content out there. Well, Troy, thank you so much for being on the show today out there. Any last thing that you want to say before we round the show up?
That's about it. I appreciate you having me on, and I'll stress one more time, it's important to go out there, experiment, and not be afraid to fail.
Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. We're definitely going to see you guys with another amazing guest in the next episode. Until then, peace out.